Hi, everybody.
We have anybody watching?
We're live. No, we just went live.
Oh, we just went live?
And now I'm going to mute everybody's mics and bring in the music. So everybody at home watching live, you just have to hold on so we make the podcast sound good. Holy shit, Brad. It's Saturday.
Yes, it is.
What do you think about that?
This is strange. Podcast is usually on Wednesday.
It's 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, and we're not even at home.
I know. I should be in the bed right now.
We are. Would you like to tell them where we're at?
We're here at Great Grappling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with my main man, Jeremy Arel, also known as the Gerbil.
Thank you.
And hopefully you guys are tuned in right now watching us live on YouTube. If you're not, you need to get your butts over here and let's get this party started.
Let's get it started right.
Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to your own school, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Welcome to your own school. Thank you for having us, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having and late notice. I appreciate that.
And for you people watching us live on the my Facebook Live right now, I'm going to sign off. So you guys need to go over to the YouTube channel. Just wanted to give everybody a little pre-notice that we were going live, and thank you guys for watching.
You want to do any plug-in for your YouTube channel real fast?
Sure. I have a YouTube channel at IBJJF. So if you go to YouTube, you type in IBJJF, I've got about 300 or so technique videos.
Mm-hmm.
They range from basics to some more conceptual things like that. I have some videos that talk about concepts for grappling, for competition, grip fighting, things like that. And I take requests. So if you ever have any requests, you should just shoot me a message either on Facebook or on YouTube. Brad's over here waiting on me to put out the flower sweep. So he wants to call it the bread's basket.
The bread's basket. Oh, we'll get to that.
It's not a flower sweep. People, he just told a lie on world YouTube. It is not a flower sweep. It is not a flower sweep. Jeremy, it's not a flower sweep. It may be a variation of a flower sweep, but it is not a flower sweep.
Well, what changes it from a flower sweep?
Because you sweep me with it. I'm not getting swept by a freaking flower sweep.
Sure
Stop lying.
So
no, it's not a flower sweep.
The way that move came around, I started using it in no-gi, and instead of putting my foot on the floor, I started putting my foot on the hip. And you have to manipulate their core and their body a little bit differently.
So can I interrupt you real fast?
Sure.
Can you give a brief description of what position you're in?
Absolutely.
And actually the setup via as many techniques or arm and hand movements as you want to.
It is a closed guard technique. Typically, you control the sleeve on one side and the pant leg on the other. The closer you can get to the ankle, the better off you are, although the knee grip is a really good grip as well. The sleeve grip can be anywhere between the elbow or the wrist, but ideally I like to take in the middle of the forearm so that you get increased pressure pull across the back of the shoulder while also maintaining the ability to stop them from basing. Now, a classic flower sweep, typically the foot goes on the floor by the ankle on the same side as the sleeve that you're controlling. Then you'll cut the angle, you use the inside of your thigh to off balance them, push them off. You pull on the sleeve, lift on the leg, and roll them over. It looks a little bit like a pendulum sweep, but a little bit more static. Typically, my version, I don't want to say my version because I didn't.
Oh, no, it's his version. It's his version.
Rather than putting my foot on the floor, I put my foot on the hip. And what that does is a number of things. One, it compresses the hip down and it will offset their hips. And when you offset the hips, it makes the side on the leg that you're going to lift lighter. That's convenient. It also has the benefit of keeping your knee directly behind the shoulder. So when people do want to posture or pull back on that arm that you're controlling, you have a thigh directly connected to their back and a knee right there as well. And then the turning of the body and the core from the stomping on the hip at the same time as you turn, it started off as a base check for me in no-gi, a way for me to maybe set up triangles or put a high type of guard. and people started falling over. I never was supposed to be a sweep. It was only supposed to be a base check. And then when I made the transition back into the gi, I couldn't really think of a good reason why I wouldn't keep putting my foot on the hip. And so I just kept doing that. And I found out that combining that pressure down on the hip with the torsion and turning of the body while having the ability to pull and kind of disengage with your body a little bit, it's just really powerful. So I've seen Andre Galvao do it. He keeps his foot on the floor. He doesn't typically put his foot on the hip, but I didn't make it up. I just teach it.
Bull butter.
Fred shaking his head.
Absolute bull butter. One of the things I take pride in my jiu-jitsu is I'm very, very, very difficult.
Coconut water. I'll pay you at the end.
I'm very difficult to sweep, and I've had a lot of good people try to sweep me. I've had people, they may not have been at your level, but I've had some of your students try that exact same sweep on me.
Sure.
And it doesn't work.
Okay.
Okay. So you're obviously doing a very, and then this is why I say this, because I asked you one time, is this a size issue?
Mm-hmm.
And you said no.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So if it's not a size issue,
Mm-hmm.
then you're obviously doing some other black magic voodoo sweep that you're not sharing with the rest of us. And what really leads me to believe that you're doing some black magic voodoo sweep is the fact I asked you to post a video of you doing it. And I know you have it in your secret vault somewhere, and you're messing with me.
There's definitely a secret vault here.
There's a secret vault somewhere. Yes. And 15 times, I'm not making this up, dude. I wake up in the morning and my phone goes, ding! I have a special little ringtone for the Great Grappling videos. Ding! And I'm like, oh, Jeremy posted my video. And I open my YouTube, and what do I see? Not my video that I asked for. So guys, this little request thing he's talking about, I'm calling fudge on it because I requested the video. I haven't got the breadbasket sweep yet. Okay, because when I get the ring and I open my phone, I don't see breadbasket sweep. I see things like standing and passing. Yuck. That's so disgusting. I hate standing and passing. I see things like lapel chokes. Yuck. Nobody wants to do lapel chokes. So disgusting.
I should point out that if you stood to pass my guard, I wouldn't be able to do that sweep to you.
See, that's a lie. Because then he wants me to stand so then he can hit me with this other ridiculous sweep that he does. He thinks I'm stupid, like I'm going to stand up. So then he can do that stupid basic push-pull sweep that he does. And I'll set my balance, and I'll fall back down, and then I'll re-stabilize my base, and then he'll hit me with this black magic voodoo. But it's okay, though. It's okay. We've got him on the podcast now. Everybody's seen how he treats me. Okay? It's public.
Maybe I need to sit in the middle.
It's public. It's public. Hey man, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, really
awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you're our first guest away from our school, both physically and as an actual guest, because the only other guest we've had has been Nicole.
Okay.
And she's probably going to become a permanent fixture.
Yeah, because everybody wants Nicole to be back on here. I don't know why. I mean, I guess me and Nick don't look good enough or something. Nick, slide over, man, so people can see. We should have put.
Don't worry, this is Bread's kitchen.
We should have.
I'm fine.
We should have put the camera on that bench over there.
Well, once I get the new camera up and going, don't worry about it.
If anybody would like to donate to Bread's Kitchen so that we can get a new camera, man.
No, we have it.
Oh,
but if you do want to donate, you can just let us know at thebreadskitchen@gmail.com, and all funds go right back into production of the podcast and YouTube.
All right, so hey, check this out real quick. We're gonna get this. We gotta get this thing started right.
Hold on. There's a bunch of stuff on this list that I'm not sure I really want to talk about. Oh my God.
Exactly why we drew them up.
We're gonna do the word game here. Okay, and we're gonna make this a tradition with our guests. Okay.
Yes.
And so this is what we're going to do, though. This is the rules. Okay.
Take off my glasses.
So me and you, or you and I, my English is terrible. Nick, we're going to alternate saying these words to Jeremy, and then he's going to give us a
first word
reply or a short phrase comeback of his thoughts on this word. Then at the end, Jeremy will get one word to throw at me.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm.
So, Nick, are you ready?
Just warning you, I shouldn't have taken my CBD this early in the morning.
Should have took your what?
My CBD.
Your What is CBD?
Joint pain.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right. So.
Can you learn him?
Nope.
You've already been down this road. It doesn't work. Okay, so you ready, Nick?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to go first. This is the first word, Jeremy. Half guard.
Half guard. Gordo.
I knew that was coming.
I mean, that's pretty easy, right?
That's pretty easy. That's a good one. I mean,
that's what I was expecting.
That was a good one.
Okay.
Go, Nick.
Family.
I have a big one. They're like gremlins. I had none, and then I guess I fed them after midnight. We had 3 and 17 months. I don't recommend that. I love them immensely, but whoo, they're tiring.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3 kids?
I have a pair of twins, and I have when the twins were 17 months old, we had a third one. And yep. If you look at
17 months,
dude, we figured out what's leading to it, and won't be happening anymore, right? I had no gray hair. I had not all the hair on my head, but I had a significant amount of hair on my head. You see,
the picture he put up with you was very flattering.
Yeah, way more flattering than what's currently going on.
I love that picture, man. It's a badass picture.
It is Saturday morning at 8:30.
It's a badass picture.
But I think that's the picture that I took right after getting my black belt in Brazil. Nope. No. Greg Riley might have taken that one, I think.
Yes.
I think. Okay.
So shout out your blog URL too, as well. For the people that don't know, he used to write a blog.
Nick, you're killing the game.
I'm sorry.
You're killing the game.
I got to plug him when I can.
We can shout out blog URLs and all that stuff after the game.
Right.
You're killing the game.
All right, go.
All right.
That's why I brought it up. Brazil.
Right. Brazil. Oh, wait, did you say Brazil? Yeah. No, you said family.
He said family, and I said big one. Go.
Okay. All right, Brazil.
Life defining, I guess. For me, I had graduated college. I had an opportunity to go teach physical education. I had signed a contract with Iredell County to teach physical education at Troutman Elementary, and then they tried to eliminate that position and get me to teach between some schools, and I thought that they were setting me up for failure. So ultimately, I didn't do that. The school district. Okay. So what ended up happening when they had the interview process, they talked to me heavily about the fitnessgram and statewide testing for physical education students. And that's something that I'm comfortable with. I understand it. And so they wanted to hire me. When I signed that contract, I signed the contract with the district. And then some time started to go by, and they weren't contacting me about the job. And so I started calling them, and they're like, well, you signed to have a job with the school district, but we've eliminated the position that we hired you for at Troutman Elementary. And I was like, okay, so where am I going to be teaching? And they said, well, you're going to be teaching between these 3 schools. And right off the bat, that's a worry, because then you don't have like a home room. A lot of times you'll have a cart with all your PE equipment on it. And I asked them, I said, out of curiosity, what's the rotation for the PE? Meaning, how often do the children have PE? And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they said 10 days, and that's 10 school days. So they wanted me to teach PE to elementary age kids 1 time every 10 school days. That's every 2 weeks. Yeah. And then when they were doing the interview process, like I said, they really wanted to talk to me about the state testing. Well, if I'm only seeing a child twice a month for 30 minutes each time, how am I going to teach them basic locomotor movements, hopping, skipping, leaping, tossing, catching, all of those things? And so I didn't want to put myself in a position where I wouldn't be able to meet those standards because I wasn't seeing the children enough and then get removed from my teaching job. Right. I'm not interested in that. And so I ultimately turned down that job, and I was a doorman at a couple clubs and doing like bouncing, and a year of my life after college just like gone. Okay. And I kind of just snapped to, and I was like, oh my goodness, if I don't do something right now defining with my life, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be doing this forever. And so that's when I made the decision that I was going to go to Brazil. And, they've done a bunch of studies that when you make a decision on something, that you shouldn't tell people, because when you tell someone, your body will reward yourself with like dopamine, almost like doing it. And so that's why you get a bunch of people that they'll talk about what they're going to do, and then they don't follow through. Do it, right? Yeah. So they get the reward. Well, for me, I don't typically operate that way. I'm more concerned that other people will think I'm one of those people that doesn't follow through or do what I say I'm going to do. Yeah. And so when I start telling people, what it does is I hold myself accountable because I don't want to be one of those people.
Right.
And so I started telling people, I say, hey, I'm moving to Brazil. You're not moving to Brazil. I told my parents, I'm going to Brazil. And my mom was like, yeah, okay. You know, and literally, like, no one believed me. And it fueled me. You know, it's one of those things that no attrition, no morale. You know, if everyone could do it, it wouldn't be worth doing. Yeah. And so I did a lot of things. I started saving a bunch of money. I got some sponsorships. I printed up DVDs with 28 no-gi techniques. 28 no-gi techniques. And I wasn't confident enough to sell them as instructionals. So what I did is I got labels and I sold them as micro sponsorships. It was like proud supporter of a local grappler. Yeah. And I would carry around like this big case of them and I was selling them for 20 bucks a piece. Yeah. And so what I would do is I would go like, hey, you know, I've got this dream. I want to go to Brazil. And people want to help you, but they don't know how. And so what I did is by doing that, I just created a way to make it easy for someone. Like $20 is an easy denomination of money. And so they would go, yeah, sure. And they wouldn't even care about the DVD. A lot of people that bought those DVDs didn't grapple, you know? Yeah. And so that helped me kind of step outside of the small crowd of jiu-jitsu people, you know, back in 2009. Yeah. And so I raised, just selling DVDs, almost $3,000, and I saved a bunch of money. And then I started, you had asked about the blog. I started this blog about the process, you know, like, hey, I'm going to Brazil. And what is it? You know, these are the things I have to do. Right. And so, of course, you have to have a passport, but a lot of people don't know that you need to get a visa, and they have a reciprocation process. So whatever a country requires of them to go to Brazil, or excuse me, to come to America, that's what they require to go to Brazil. And so it's kind of a pain in the butt. Yeah. You know, right. But I blogged that out to let people kind of know what the process is like in case they wanted to go as well.
Yeah, that is freaking phenomenal. I hope all of our guests. So from now on, Jeremy is like the standard of stories
of which everyone will be measured.
Of which everyone will be measured for our guests. And if they don't meet the standard, then we're gonna have to come up with something. I'll come up with something. I don't know what it'll be.
I have a couple ideas.
You got some ideas? Okay. All right. So let's go on. So that was Brazil. Go ahead. Hit him up, Nick.
Ringworm.
You skipped one, dude. You were killing me.
Oh, my bad. I thought we just talked about it. I was going to let you do this one.
Okay. You go to ringworm. Go.
Ringworm.
Ringworm. Fungus.
Okay.
Hold on. Well, we need to go into this one too. So I have a physical education degree, but health was also a minor involved in that. And so the number one thing of any learning environment is that it needs to be clean and safe. When you step in my school, I want you to smell two things. I want you to smell air freshener and bleach, right? Like if you smell those two things, I'm a happy person. So we wash the mats every time we're done with them. You should always wash your gi. That includes washing your belt. And you should always be on the lookout on your body because ringworm is a fungus. Now,
how do you feel about people washing their butts? Like, shouldn't they wash their butts also? Isn't butts pretty?
You should wash every part of your body.
But butts is serious. Because, I mean, butt is where stuff comes out. And people don't wash their butts. Yeah. And then you smell it.
Well, yes, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ringworm, and ringworm is a fungus. Okay. Now, I would be more concerned with bacterial infections coming out of your butt.
Okay, we need to add that word on there for the next guest, bacterial infections.
Bacterial infections.
That way we talk about butts.
That one.
Talk about
butts. If you look on WebMD, and I'm not a huge proponent of self-diagnosis or anything like that, but if you look on WebMD, ringworm is listed as a common thing. In the realm of things that can happen to you, ringworm isn't uncommon. Right. And so let's say
it's probably the least severe.
Right, absolutely. 100% curable. It's, you know, athlete's foot, that's a form of ringworm. Jock itch, that's a form of ringworm. And so all of these funguses, they kind of fall under the umbrella of.
And it's not a real worm, people.
Correct. It's a fungus. It's not a parasite. Hookworm, that's a worm.
That's a worm.
So one of the issues is you can go pet your dog and get ringworm. Yes. You can pet your cat, you can get ringworm. Just because you have ringworm at academy doesn't mean that you got ringworm at the academy. And when your academy grows to a certain point, it's just a game of numbers. Someone is going to have ringworm. So we are very, very fortunate. My school has passed the 200 mark. And so if half of 1% has ringworm of the population, That would mean that one person at a given time in my school has ringworm, whether they contracted it here or not. More than likely, not somewhere else.
Right.
So when I give these speeches,
which is why I hate students traveling. Pisses me off. Go ahead, because they go to the places that don't take care. Yeah, that don't take, and then they bring the shit.
They should know better not to train at some place that does not meet the standards of where they train. That's another topic.
Okay, another topic. Okay,
and that's a whole nother. We'll talk about that topic in a second.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to getting ringworm, I talk about cleaning your gi. Make sure that you wash the mats. You should take a shower within 30 minutes. Some people are all about tea tree oil and all this stuff. Exfoliate your skin, hit the shower within 30 minutes. That's why we have a shower at our school. Make sure you wear your shoes when you're not on the mat. Never wear your shoes on the mat. It's not a sterile environment, but we should treat it as such. Make an effort. If you get ringworm, that is not a crime. The crime is being a zombie, right? Where you've all seen those zombie movies and you get bit and you're like, no, not me. And then you cover it up. Right.
Yes.
And then you go back with everyone else and you get everyone affected. Everyone's dead. Right. Yeah. So just don't be a zombie. If you get ringworm, take off, a week, not even a week. Once you start treating it, we use the same return to sport protocols as wrestling. Right. And so if you're putting antifungal on it 72 hours afterwards, it shouldn't be contagious anymore. Make sure that it's not flaking. It's not bubbled up. It should be starting to fade. But hit that as soon as possible. You can't take a week off training to make sure that everyone doesn't get ringworm. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's the problem. And what I find is that because of this job and because of the physical education health degree that I have, that I'm just a little bit more educated. And some people, I'll see a spot and I'm like, hey, what's up with that spot? Can I take a look at that? And they're like, oh, it's just this rash I've had. And then I'm like, oh my God. And it'll be the size of a watermelon. And I'm like, what are you going to do about that? Oh, what is it? I'm like, well, you know how I keep giving those speeches about ringworm, and if you have a rash and you don't know, come talk to me.
Yeah.
If you have any question about anything on your body, most of your jiu-jitsu instructors, most of your wrestling coaches, most of your judo, just go ask the coach. Like I've seen more ringworm than I would say probably most primary care physicians. If you're a dermatologist, of course, you see that kind of stuff all the time.
Just so people know, everybody on this panel, raise your hand if you've had ringworm.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
Right, and because it's common.
Yeah.
Right, and now there is a standard. Let's move into the question about gyms that don't maintain a clean atmosphere. Now there's at least a standard. What was it 15 years ago?
Oh, good grief.
Right. You show up, right. And it was the wild, wild west. There were places that I would go to train and I would, be on bottom. I'd go to sweep. I'd look at the floor and I'm like, I'm not playing bottom anymore. This floor is disgusting. Belly. This is the only thing I'm doing for the rest of the time I'm in this school. But you can't, I wouldn't want to eliminate potential training partners in places then based on the cleanliness, because everywhere was basically a dungeon.
Yeah.
If I'm like, hey, are we going to clean the mats? At Lewis's, we clean the mats every day.
Yeah.
But the way that he cleaned the mats, and I'm thinking about it now, we use the same towels every day, right? We would soak them in like pine salt. Right? Yeah. Dude, I'm with you. Like the mats are slimy and stuff. But I mean, at least he cared.
Yeah, at least he was making an effort.
Like, he was making an effort.
Back then in the jiu-jitsu community, the education wasn't there. Like, well, I'll tell you one worse. In the wrestling community, the education has always been there, but people, I mean, seriously, like you go into wrestling rooms, it's the norm. Wrestlers have ringworm and they'll just they'll just cover it up in wrestling rooms. Seriously, and a lot of times, they have the heat turned up, and the hotter it is, the more that fungus and bacteria just breeds and just grows. I mean, I remember at my old high school where I graduated from, they had a breakout of impetigo, and man, it was sad because I remember one of the kids I knew really well, he was actually hospitalized with it. I mean, he was in a bad way. But man, that was awesome. So let's did you do that one, Brazil? Okay, so
no, we're good. We're on to Jake.
No, Donald Trump.
Next question. What am I supposed to say to that?
You got to give something. I mean,
we ask everybody.
A word, a phrase.
Bad hairdo.
Bad hair. I like his hair. You don't like his hair?
You cannot mess with Brad and his love for the Trumpster.
Big Daddy D Donald Trump. Although
We've tweeted him like 12 times.
He doesn't answer.
He hasn't answered.
He doesn't answer. He doesn't respond.
He will though.
So I don't know if anyone told you, but when you walk through that door, we don't typically talk about politics or religion. Period.
Yeah, but you let us bring the bread. This is like a, what is it?
This is a mobile kitchen.
Yeah, it's like a mobile kitchen.
Yeah, it's a mobile kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like right now we're sitting in like the
VIP section.
no, we're like in the Russian embassy.
Mm.
Like, how does it work with the embassies in like the United States? Like, are they like
That's
it
their
is sovereign territory
Yeah.
of whatever country.
okay?
it
So
is.
this couch right here is this area.
yeah.
Jeremy is like a sovereign territory.
Uh-huh.
You signed the contract. Is in the contract? Did you not read it?
I did not read it.
You not read it. This is like a this is
I did
bread.
not sign anything, by the
This
way.
is the United States of bread
That's why you
right
had to
here.
get your blood taken too.
United States of bread right here. This little area that we're sitting on, and so this is good. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
States of bread.
Donald Trump. I can't believe you said a bad hairdo.
Let me see.
Hold
And
on,
he answered your question.
wait a minute.
It's the first thing that came
Hold
to
on, wait a
mind.
minute. But before we go any further, Donald, we're gonna have a discussion. Okay, you can't call countries shitholes.
Looking you in the eye.
Okay, you can't call countries shitholes, dude. You just can't do it. I mean, it's just not gonna work. Just don't do that.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, just don't. And you know what pissed me off?
Why would you call a country a shit?
Oh
You know
God, we're talking about Donald Trump. What's the next one?
No, hold on, wait a minute. But you want to know the worst
Can we talk
part?
about ringworm symbol?
No, but you
Sure.
know, he did it the day after I took up for him on the podcast.
I know.
And then the next day,
You did
I
it.
literally woke up the next morning and I saw Donald Trump calls Haiti and other countries a shithole. And I'm just like, there's no way you're this stupid. But then again, I guess he is. I mean,
Daddy T.
that's so sad.
DT.
That's so sad, man. I'm disappointed, Dom. I'm disappointed. I know you hear me. You're just not tweeting me back. So
I am neither disappointed or not disappointed.
He's disappointed.
I'm not.
He's sitting beside me. Association. All right, go ahead, Nick. What we got?
John the Pipe Doctor.
The Pipe Doctor John
Okay.
Piper. Dun, dun, dun,
I should
dun.
have proofread these.
Well, we didn't give you a list.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. Piper. Good crucifix.
Dude, that's very good response. Good crucifix. Good crucifix. Okay. IBJJF.
International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. They are an organization that puts on tournaments. Are they perfect? No. Are they better than the rest? Yes. Any organization that grows as large as they have is going to run into some issues.
In that shorter period of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
People forget
absolutely.
that also.
Absolutely. I think one of the bigger issues is lack of referees. Like, you see the same referees at places all the time. And if people want to complain about referee calls and things like that, there's a really easy way to stop that. And that's sign up, take the referee course, and start reffing. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not telling people no. It's at the exact opposite. I get emails every time they come to Charlotte. Hey, we need referees. Do you have anyone that can referee? And if that is something that you value, then you should go do that. Other than that, I think that they try very hard. Their shirts are rad, right? Like, I'm okay with their rule set. Some people don't like it. I'm okay with that too. I think that it's an okay organization.
So I just hold on for a minute. Let me straighten my microphone out. Get it here closer to me so I can sit back and relax. Gerbil. Okay, so I just want to know if I got this straight. So basically, your opinion of people complaining about the referees are, if they don't like it, they should have a Coke, a smile, and shut the hell up. Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's not what you said.
It is okay to dissent on that, but just realize that dissension doesn't change anything. You know, I mean, like, do something about it.
That's why I don't like talking to like him and like Joe Hurst. Like, I try to twist their words and they don't play along. You're boring, dude. You gotta play along.
Well,
Like, I took what you wanted to say, which was have a Coke, a smile, and shut the hell up.
yeah.
And I took that and applied it to what you really said.
But more eloquently.
Yeah, and then I gave you an opportunity to go, yes, that's what I meant. But you didn't do that.
But that's not what I
He
meant.
threw the ball up, and you just didn't even swing.
You didn't even swing at it, man. You gotta Okay, let's go on to the next. Louis Tognan.
He was my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor.
He literally was your. Was he Brazilian?
I don't know. I think he was half Puerto Rican, so no. But he spoke Portuguese.
Well, you emphasize Brazilian, so I thought you were saying like he was your first Brazilian. That's what I thought. No, seriously, that's really what I thought you meant. Okay,
no,
go ahead.
No, he had some really good jiu-jitsu techniques. The environment that he created in his school is totally different than the environment that I create in my school. Totally okay. Different environments, okay. He had a very unique leadership and coaching style. And that's why I ended up leaving and going and training with Charles Hannabrink. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go back to Louis here in a little bit. So, what's the second to last one on there, Nick?
Twins. How much sleep did you get last night?
Last night, 5.5 hours, 6 hours.
Well, that's pretty good, man. That's a home run.
My children are amazing sweepers. Hopefully, they turn out to be amazing sweepers.
Probably already are.
Yeah,
they came out throwing sweepers.
Sleepers. My wife is a huge part of that. We did the baby wise and like very structured and routined with time to wake up now, time to sleep now, time to eat now. And so for the first 4 months, it was a real bummer. But now, because of that first 4 months, life's a lot easier. So for the first 4 months, I would get home from class at 10 p.m. and I would like tag my wife out and she would go to sleep, and she would sleep from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. and I would be on baby duty. And so every 2 hours, you would wake them up, change them, which kind of gets them stimulated, feed them, burp them, put them down, and then start the next one. That cycle takes about 30 minutes with one child. So then you got 30 minutes with one child, 30 minutes with another child. And then you have an hour to wash all those bottles. And we did cloth diapering because I was not super financially awesome. And so that was a way that we could keep the diaper cost low. And so you would just take care of all the things that it takes to support those. And then between 4 and 6 a.m., my wife would wake up and she would tag me out and I would sleep until 10 a.m. where I would come to the school. And I drink a lot of coffee now, Forte Legato. Woo! Right. But I had never tasted coffee really. No, that's not true. I never drank coffee until I was 32 when the twins came. And so then I just started pounding coffee, and of course tears your stomach up, high acid. I remember I was using Tums as coffee sweetener, just like ease my stomach up. But they're hilarious. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're radically different. My daughter looks like a carbon copy of me, and my son looks like somebody from another family. My daughter has almond shaped eyes and a very like similar shaped head to myself, and then my son's got this big huge like pasty white head, big round blue eyes, and if I didn't see them come into the world together, probably like I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, oh, that one's not mine, there was a mistake. But they act totally different people. And
how old are they?
They're 3.5. They had the half birthday yesterday.
And your youngest is how old?
Joel, December, he turned 2. So
okay,
just over 2.
Okay, he's 2 months older than my daughter. So, all right, well, man, twins. Okay, so last word. Hit him, Nick.
School.
Okay, institution of learning.
Institution of learning. Okay, all right. So, real quick, let's go back. Tell us about your history. So you got out of college, and you decided you was gonna do something defining with your life, and you was gonna go to Brazil. But you had trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before going to Brazil. And okay, so take us from the beginning. Where did you start training Jiu-Jitsu?
So let's just start with martial arts then. So I started Ishinryu karate at 6. My parents got married, and their reward for me, like being, I don't know, a good kid, was to put me in karate.
Yes.
And back then, karate was about what you had.
Right.
So I was like 87-ish. And I did that for a little while, and then it was kind of far away from home. there were a number of factors that led to me not doing that anymore. I did that for about a year, maybe 8 months, something like that. Then we moved down to South Carolina when I was 14 from Massachusetts, and I wanted to do martial arts. And so there was a Taekwondo program at a church taught by a guy named Mr. Knight. And it was on Monday nights, and me and my friend, we would get together and we would go train there. And then throughout the week, we would get together and practice, and like we would kind of fight, spar type stuff. And we really enjoyed that. And then he started whooping up on me, and come to find out he had started taking Kung Fu. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I need to take something else too. And through talking to a couple of my friends, I found this guy, William Johnson, right?
Willie J. Willie J. I can't wait to have Willie J on here, man.
No.
We're going to have a blast.
I don't know that man at all. What I just said is a total lie. But
we'll probably get censored from YouTube, but we're going to have fun.
So he was teaching a school in Rock Hill, and it was Jeet Kune Do concepts. And I started training there, and it was very light on the JKD aspects. You know, we weren't doing like pack style, lop style type things. So after a few years of doing that, they stopped calling it Jeet Kune Do and started calling it MMA. And MMA was somewhat popular. Like this was right around. Do you remember when Ricardo Arona and Rampage fought? And
yes,
almost
Pride. Yes.
Yeah. Woo! That time frame, we had already moved from Rock Hill over the bridge. So, I mean, even before that, we were doing like some rudimentary grappling. Like I knew how to do a double leg, a single leg. That's not, not necessarily Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but guillotines, arm bars, Kimura. That's about it. Maybe scissor sweep too. And I was like, I'm good. I know this grappling.
Yeah.
Right. And
I am a black belt.
I had a couple of smoker events. Like I did a bad man competition Monroe, and that was an experience. And then I did the WASKA or WSKA kickboxing like team trial thing, and I was an alternate on that. And I had really, really wanted to be an MMA fighter. And William told me that I should go to Alliance in Charlotte, that he has taught me everything he could teach me. He's like, hey, I've taught you everything I can, but you need to brush up on your ground game.
Dude, you had learned everything you could from Willie Johnson.
I know. Right. Well, in reality, he taught us how to fight. I mean, like we knew how to fight for sure. It was like fight.
There's
club.
a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tell people that all the time. There's a difference between fighting and doing jiu-jitsu.
Correct.
There's a difference in doing jiu-jitsu and doing jiu-jitsu for fighting on the street and fighting in the cage. People don't understand. There's a big difference.
Big difference. Yes, big difference. So he really did teach us how to fight though. It was like Fight Club. Every night we would full contact spar with foam dip. Like the, the point sparring, like put those on, beat each other up, like I remember we went to a tournament one time and we never wore mouthpieces. That's and I didn't have a mouthpiece, and they're like, you can't fight without a mouthpiece. And so William handed me an airhead, and he's like, here, just fold this around your teeth, and then when the match starts, chew it up and swallow it. Right? Right, for real. So
did you do that?
I absolutely did that, man. Like, but I was young, I was stupid,
Do you have a picture of this?
Of the time?
Yeah.
I've got some pictures. Not that I really want to share, but I mean, like, I was young. So he sent me to Alliance to brush up on my groundwork. And when I showed up there with the arrogance of someone that thought that they knew how to fight and grapple.
Yes.
And I got tuned up pretty hard.
Nick, does this sound familiar? Does this sound like the me and Hoist Gracie story? I showed up. Well, I was ready, but go ahead.
Ready to choke Hoist, just unconscious.
Didn't work out for you.
No, it didn't work. I did have a nice double leg. Whether he let me or not, I still don't know, because I woke up a little bit after. But
yeah,
it was fun. So you say Alliance Charlotte. This is Louis Togno, correct?
That was Louis Togno at the time.
Okay. I was saying, but how old was you then?
21.
21. Okay, so go ahead.
And what year is this?
2004.
2004.
So I went to Iraq from 2003 to 2004. I had had some like no-gi training with William before that. So I don't want to say that I was an intermediate, but I definitely wasn't a beginner.
Right.
I would say from 14 until 20, so 6 years, and we worked on the ground frequently. I would say we did 40% stand up, 40% ground, 20% clinch. Yeah. So like that was at a time when people really weren't valuing that as much, especially not in this area. I think that equation was something he found from someone else, but we were using that anyway. So 40% of that time in that 6 years was spent on the ground, to the point where I thought I knew what I was doing because I've been doing something for 6 years. Yeah. And then I show up and I did not perform well. Well. So what was the question? Did I answer the question?
Yeah. So you're at Lewis's 2004. Okay. And then how long was you at Lewis's?
I was with Lewis. I was a white belt for 18 months and a blue belt for 2.5 years. And then shortly after getting my purple belt, I blew out my knee getting heel hooked in the advanced no-gi division at the the North Carolina State Championships, which was a tournament run by Lewis at the time. And I really wanted to do more no-gi at the time because I wanted to be an MMA fighter. Remember, I started training there with the intent of brushing up on my ground game. And I would say in the 4 years that I trained, and I was training 4 to 5 days a week. Sometimes I would do 2 a days. My second year, I rearranged my schedule at college so that I could go to the morning classes as well. And in that time, I would say we did no-gi maybe 6 times. Like I could definitely count on my hands how many times we did no-gi. And so I got inverted heel hooked. And
do you remember who did it?
It was a brown belt from Traven after the Alliance Traven split. Yeah. And so the pro division was for $500, and I had brand new purple belt. And Lewis is like, "Hey, you're gonna do this division," and we don't ever do no-gi, right? But if you made a top 10 list of the things not to do when someone's heel hooking you, like I did them all, right? Like I'm like, bend my knee as much as possible, put as much pressure on my knee as I can, crunch up in the space. And so I have it on video. I have the video of the guy. I don't remember what his name was, but he was slick set up. He heel hooked me, it tore my meniscus. You can see the head of my knee roll over.
Did you tap?
Yep, screamed and then drug my butt across the floor like a dog that ate something spicy.
Have you seen him since? The guy that did it. Would you like to go find him?
No.
Okay. I'm just asking.
No. These are trying to get controversy.
No, man. These are the questions people want to know. I mean, somebody sitting there watching right now is going, "You should go find the son of a bitch." That's what somebody right there said. In fact, it's William Johnson. I guarantee you, William Johnson is watching right now. That's what he's saying. We should all pile up in the car, go down to Atlanta, and find this guy.
No. I'm not mad at that guy. Actually, if I find him, I'm going to thank him because it was one of the early catalysts that separated me from training with Lewis, because I found that there was this huge hole in my game that if I'm going to do MMA and it's going to be a no-gi oriented situation, that I need to go somewhere that is going to prepare me for that. I wasn't mad at that guy. I was mad at Lewis for putting me in that situation and not preparing me. And it wasn't because I didn't go to class. I was in class all the time. It was because he didn't teach the heel hook game to me.
On that, we're going to go on because I want to hear where you went next and all that. But I started with Johnny Husky and Billy Wicks up in Asheville with the catch wrestlers. And catch wrestling up there, totally different, just a different world of what I got into and what I do now with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Everything started on our feet. Everything. What we did, like 50% of everything we did was on our feet. The rest was top control, wrist rides. Like if you ever watch Khabib fight MMA, a lot of the stuff he does with his wrist rides, we literally drill it. Of course, that's just to us, that was basic high school, college wrestling. And a lot of leg locks, a lot of neck cranks, a lot of double top wrist locks, a lot of things that probably the general public look at on pro wrestling and think, oh, that stuff doesn't work. But in the reality of it is that stuff does work if you just tweak one or two things. Sure. And I remember going to tournaments, and I had an idea of what catch wrestling was when I walked into the room, because I already knew what USC was.
Right.
So I already knew who Royce Gracie was. I already knew about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they said that it was similar. So I had an idea of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. And once I got in the room with the catch wrestlers, being a grappler all my life from wrestling, I knew what I was doing wasn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then they said, we're going to go to these tournaments, we're going to compete. And I remember them telling me, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell you to do it. You may not do it, but you're going to see your teammates do it. Your teammates are going to take these guys down, and these guys are going to try to pull close guard. And the moment they open their guard, your teammate's going to sit back, he's going to grab their foot, and they're going to break their leg.
Okay.
And it was literally, that's how Pops and Johnny Husky would word it to me.
Sure.
And I remember going to these tournaments, and I remember thinking to myself, that's not going to happen, because if we're training heel hooks and these step over toe holds and these leg locks and these shin locks and all this stuff, they're doing the same thing, and they're just not going to do it. And I remember watching guys like Chris Rogers and Brad Hanna, Footlock Brad, just obliterate people's knees, and thinking to myself, why do they let them do that? And I didn't understand until I moved down here in the Charlotte area. And I didn't understand that people just didn't train leg locks to the extent, or even sometimes at all, like we did. It absolutely blew my mind. And then I remember thinking to myself, well, then why do they enter these tournaments if they know that there's somebody, because with us, especially like when we would go to the Ray Thompson tournament or the South Carolina tournament with them with Mark Mills, they knew that we were coming. So I would always sit there and think to myself, well, then why do they, one, let us do those moves, or two, why do they not prepare, for the leg locks? So, I mean, that's interesting that you said that he put you in that situation. And it makes me wonder, do you think that he did that because maybe in his mind he thought, A, no one's going to go for leg locks, or B, the leg locks aren't that effective? Because I've heard people make those comments in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a long time ago. Well, the leg locks are, they're a poor man's way to grapple. They're not really effective. Do you think? Why do you think he put you in there?
He didn't want to give the $500 to a guy from Gordo Travin's team because he was Team Alliance.
So he put you in there?
Yeah. Well, Ian McPherson was in there too, and so I don't know. I think I was just fodder for this dude to hopefully tire him out.
Yeah. Who won? Did Ian? Ian won it. Did he go against that guy?
Next.
Did Ian break his leg?
I don't think so.
So we wouldn't like getting gangster on this stuff. It wasn't like the Bloods and Crips or.
Well,
I mean, Roberto Travern and the Alliance, that was pretty nasty back then.
When it first happened, it was pretty nasty.
So that goes back to do you think that guy did that on purpose to you?
No.
You being Alliance?
What do you mean purpose? Do I think
well, I mean,
that
you've been
tried to heal over me?
Yeah, do you think he like torqued it a little bit harder?
Oh, no.
No?
Yeah, he was classy. When I screamed, he let go right away.
Okay. I mean, I've torqued people's legs in tournaments because I was pissed about something. I'm just saying maybe he did that to you. Back when I was younger. I wouldn't do that now, but.
No.
No?
I don't think so.
All right, okay.
I could be wrong. If you're watching this or you know the guy that did it and you were malicious about it, hit me up. I won't even be angry. I'll be like, oh, okay.
If you know the guy that did it, this is the nicest guy in the world. Like, he's being really, really nice about this.
Well, so that was the first catalyst that was like, maybe I should
leave.
So I was out for about 10 weeks, and then I was starting to feel a little bit better. And then Lewis had an in-house tournament, and he had me compete against Nelson, who was a good friend of mine.
Nelson Mercado.
Yes, sir.
Who's one of your black belts?
Yes, sir.
Now he's one of your black belts. Okay.
Yeah.
Back then, where was Nelson at back then?
We were both purple belts. We both got our purple belts on the same day.
Okay, and where was he trained?
Lewis.
Oh, okay. Because it was an in-house tournament.
Correct.
Okay, so go ahead.
So he Harayagoshi hip tossed me, and it was the first time I was getting serious about losing weight, and so I had I'd never been thrown against my will, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
I've been taken down, and I wasn't ignorant to the fact that judo is a real thing and that, it wouldn't be an Olympic sport if it wasn't a real thing. But no one had thrown me against my will.
Right.
And what you find is that in different weight classes, and this is true in jiu-jitsu, I believe in wrestling and in judo, different weight classes have different move trends.
Yes.
And so I lost enough weight to basically get Haraya-Goshi, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the moment where my toes kind of popped off the floor, and when he threw me, I had enough sense to try and get my back to the floor, but I couldn't. Like I was rotating, and so I got my right shoulder to the floor, but his body was on the other side, so it broke my collarbone and dislocated my scapula. It clapped my shoulders together, and so that was like a. Have you ever been grappling? You're like, I think I'm hurt, and then there are other times when you're maimed, and you're like, oh my god, I need to get to the hospital now, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of those times. So like. That was 4 months out of me flipping like a pancake in bed. Like I couldn't roll over in bed. I'd have to scoot to the side to get out. And I got pissed off at that too. Like I
bet your parents thought you was just a retard.
Yeah, you know, my dad used to stand by the back door and he'd go like, you need to get a job. And I'm like, I have a job. My job is jiu-jitsu. He's like, there's no job. And now like he doesn't admit to having said that.
Yeah.
But I would say that to my kid, you know, like how much time I was spending just traveling back and forth to jiu-jitsu. My friends would, you know, hey, you want to go out tonight? And this is while I'm in college. And I'm like, what time? They're like 8:30. And I'm like, nope. You know, like I don't get home from jiu-jitsu until 10:30. So
gotta go swim in the ring.
Yeah.
The pine saw.
Right, so after that, when I came back from that injury, that's when I made the decision to go train with Charles and Rocket.
Now let me ask you. Okay, so again, being at the catch school, I didn't know a lot of the jiu-jitsu schools.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta remember, I started catch in 2001. So back then there wasn't a whole lot of jiu-jitsu schools. I knew Joe Hurst eventually, but my first introduction to jiu-jitsu was Alliance with Jacare and his guys.
Really?
Because they would come to the Ray Thompson King of the Hill tournament down in South Carolina, and that was my first interaction with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. Second one was the Gracie Baja guys, like oh my goodness, but Carlos Limas Jr.
Okay.
Because he competed in some of the tournaments we was at, and Charles Hannebrink.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have any encounters with him, but some of my teammates were in the same division with him. Him and Chris Rogers, I think, grappled against each other a couple times. Footlock Brad was in the same division as him. And to me, it's funny to hear that you left Louis Togno, okay, due to well, some of it was you wanted to learn leg locks, but it sounds also that you sort of wanted someone who you sort of felt like maybe a little bit more care in your how they take care of you as an instructor. Is that what I'm hearing?
I will say that Charles was a much better friend, I guess.
Really, man? Because I met Charles Hannebrink. I thought he was a crazy person. He was on the mat. He was a psycho, dude.
I'm not saying that. That's this man saying that.
I mean, it's a good thing. It's a compliment. I mean, he was a beast. I mean,
yes, he absolutely was a man.
Yeah, and when I say that the you know, my perception of Charles was built off of what I saw of him at competitions.
Right.
But looking at him at competition,
yeah, absolutely.
I would have never thought that he would be a good friend or a nice person or
his school,
to anyone.
His school was a very warm and inviting place for people to learn how to train.
Really?
Now, don't get me wrong.
Awesome.
The training was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat the hell out of each other. But Charles is an extremely gifted grappler.
Yeah.
You know, he knows a lot of technique. He will give it away freely if you ask him, which is pretty rad. You know, at the time that wasn't the case necessarily everywhere that you went. He would roll with his students. I roll with Charles a lot. Fantastic. Like, he's an animal. And then when I contrast that with Louis, I don't think Louis liked me very much. And I had a lot of people ask me, like, why does Louis hate you so much? And I'm like, I don't know. And I still don't know. There are a bunch of people who have theories about it, but it's not worth me really thinking about that much.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that in the over 4 years that I was there training, I never rolled with Louis ever.
In 4 years?
In 4 years.
You never rolled with Louis Togno once in 4 years.
Never rolled. When I moved to Brazil, I had never rolled with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I thought I was good. I thought I was going to be a world champion black belt, and I had never rolled with a black belt. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was a life-changing experience.
Okay, well, let's move on. So you go down here to Charles Hannah Bricks in Rock Hill, warm, welcoming environment. Which, by the way, on my list of mean, bad, some bitches, Charles just moved down. Back underneath Johnny Husky. He's a badass, but he's not mean. You're saying he's not mean?
Oh no, he can be mean. But
it's like Johnny Husky school is not welcoming or warm or. Well, you were walking into the lines then to get your leg torqued.
Hold on, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they grappled hard, but it was one of those things like, can you back it up?
Yeah.
Can you grapple?
Yeah.
Like if you weren't being a poser, you know what I mean? Like you were there to train. They helped you get better. They had a good team mentality. Like if you got better, they got better. And that was cool. You know, like they didn't hold anything back. And a lot of the grappler that I am today is because of Charles.
Because of Charles.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you go to Charles, what year was that?
I have a video of me competing in Naga in 2007. So it has to have been after that. 2007.
Okay.
Because 2009 is when I went to Brazil, and I had been with Charles about 2 years.
Okay, so let's not taking anything away from Charles, but I don't want to ruin my image now of Charles Hannah Bricks. You made it so good for me. Like I feel a lot better about Charles because I thought he was like the Hulk. I thought he ate people, but
dude, he absolutely. I've seen him do some.
Because I saw him at tournaments, man, just maul people. I mean, gosh, it was awesome to watch him.
Well, and here's the thing with Charles. He's passionate, right? And so when you go to a tournament, and this is one of the things you're going to understand the more that you have students that compete, I would much rather compete myself than have my students compete. Because when I go compete, I have 100% control over what happens with my body, right? You know, they may impose their game on me, I may lose, but if I think I should do a scissor sweep, I do a scissor sweep. You know, like I see a setup coming and I defend it. Well, imagine having a full skill set, watching one of your students compete that doesn't have that full skill set. So they have a limited amount of training because there's a finite amount of time. And so I know how to defend a guillotine pretty well. And I'm not a huge guillotine person. I don't like guillotines a whole lot. No gi, different game. But in the gi, not one of the moves that I focus a lot of my personal training on. However, I know how to defend it very well. Well, one of the first tournaments we went to, a couple of my students got guillotined. And I not only do I feel bad for them because emotionally I'm as invested in the match as they are. If they care, I care. If they don't care, I don't care, right? But if they really care and they lose, like I carry that loss with me. And so if you have a team that has 10, 15 people competing, you ride this emotional roller coaster of like, all right, we're about to start this match. Okay, what about that? Okay, that person's about to start. And so like there's the win, the loss, all of this. And then aside from that, there is the weight and emotional trauma of being a coach and carrying the shame of winning or of losing with you, right? Did they lose because I didn't prepare them, or did they lose because they made a mistake? If they made a mistake and it's something that I prepared them adequately for, okay. But I can understand that Charles is a passionate person at tournaments because he's emotionally invested in his students as well. Yeah. And so he wants them to win, and he's going to do everything he can from the sideline to get his student to win. Yeah. And man, you couldn't ask for a more passionate instructor than Charles.
That's awesome. So you leave 2009 and you go down to Brazil.
Okay.
And you go to Gordo's, right?
Yes.
Tell us about Gordo. What was it like training with Gordo?
And for everybody out there, it's Roberto Correa.
Yes. Yeah.
Also known as Gordo.
Known as Gordo.
The inventor of the half guard.
When I was going to originally go to Brazil, the goal was to go with someone set up from Charles. And that ended up falling through. It didn't work out, but I had already told everyone that I was going to Brazil, right? I already started that thread, and I'm like, oh my God, I've told all these people that I'm moving to Brazil, but now I don't have a place to go. And so I got on the Sherdog forums, which like,
back then.
Oh my goodness. Like
Yeah.
I got on the forums and I'm like, does anyone know anything about training in Brazil? My backup plan was to get off the plane and just go up to someone and be like, Jiu-Jitsu, Jiu-Jitsu, and like hope that they just take me somewhere, because I spoke zero Portuguese. And so I got on the forum and I asked, and somebody's like, well, you should ask this guy, Dennis. He's got a business, Connection Rio. And it was a brand new business that he had started. And the website was right, but it was 2009, so
nobody's
like,
website was great. Yeah,
right. And there was like a PayPal link, and I sent a couple of text messages back, or instant messages on the forum back and forth with him, and I was like, yes, I want to go. And so he wanted a deposit of like $800 or something that made me feel uncomfortable to send over the internet to some dude in Brazil. But on his website, he had a couple of people that wrote testimonials for him. And just randomly, one of them was this guy, I think it's JD Shelley in Texas. And I had just by chance, random, visited my friend in Texas and trained at this school. So I'm like, okay, this guy knows him. I know that guy's a real person. He had a real school. Right. Okay, I'll send him some money. So I sent him the money, and I just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go, And I get there. Hold on, back up. So
what was $800 for?
Deposit on living in the house. So we had this house to stay on. So let's back up 1 second. So when I asked Dennis, I'm like, hey, I don't really have a place to train. I understand this is living accommodations, but like, would you have any places that you recommend? And he's like, have you ever heard of this guy, Gordo? And I was like, nope. Right? Like, I've been training with Charles for the last couple of years. And before that, my pool of grapplers was basically Alliance. I knew Alliance, Gracie Baja, the end. Right. So I start looking up this guy, Gordo, and I'm like, man, this guy's pretty famous. And I realized that he's one of those names that you don't recognize, because when a lot of the really good instructors moved to America, he stayed behind in Brazil. Right. And so it's not that he wasn't accomplished, but most of the people bailed out and came to America. And so, okay, he invented half guard. That's pretty cool. This guy's a world champion. That's pretty cool. And then I realized that at the school was that year's Pan Am champion, world champion, Antonio Braga Neto. Wow. And then I start looking at it, his weight class, and I'm like, we're in the same weight class. And if I'm going to be an ADCC champion, I had stopped wanting to be a world champion because I was doing a lot of no-gi. ADCC, of course, no-gi, Yeah. And
I got to beat this guy.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm going to go test myself out. Yeah. Right. And
I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. Hold on. Remember, I've never rolled with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt at this point, right? So
and how long have you been training at this point?
6 years.
6 years. 6 consecutive years.
6 consecutive years. Like full-time training, like a lot of training. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm going to go put the mash on this dude. And so I get to Brazil. Dennis has somebody pick me up. I drop my stuff off and I go to Gordo's Academy. And Gordo's Academy was in a house. It was just a house. Wow. And there were some mats on the floor. You wouldn't even know it was an academy. And I didn't realize that I was going to train with Gordo, and it was his school had been open just over a year. Yeah. And so it was still new. Yeah. And so my first day, I get paired up. My first round in Brazil is a world champion black belt named Zorro Babel. Do you know remember when Roger Huerta got soccer kicked in the head in 1FC? The guy that did that to him? Yes. That's Zorro. Oh, right. Okay, so one of the warmest, nicest people ever, and he actually owns a school in Singapore now. Okay. And, but world champion, he's on point. And so
that's your first roll.
My first roll. And he pulls me into open guard, double feet on the hips, and he straight arm bars me. And I'm like, right, okay. So then we do it again. He does it again. I'm like, what is going on here, right? So this time again, and I'm like pushing for it, same arm bar, man. He hit me with the same arm bar 4 times. Yeah. And I was like, well, this
what's his name? Nicole Hunt?
Yeah. The arm collector.
Yeah, well, this guy, he's so nice. So I want to be angry. Like, I just got mauled by this black belt, and it didn't fit with.
How did that feel, by the way? To have a black belt continuously do something to you.
The same thing.
Yeah, the same thing. Yeah, the same thing, Jeremy. The same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah. Well,
I had this place in my mind where I thought I fit in the grappling community.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is an outlier. This dude's got my number. On to my next person. So my very next round was Braga Neto, right?
Gosh.
Dude. he beat the brakes off me. I mean, he beat me like I had never done jiu-jitsu before.
Yeah.
Like, really, he just mushed me. And I remember thinking, like, all right, well, black belts are better than I thought they were. Right? Like, this dude just smoked me. And so my third round was a guy, Thiago, who was a very, very good purple belt, and very good purple belt. And I was like, well, I'm a purple belt. This dude's a purple belt. I'm going to try and get him. And that dude basically worked me. And then my fourth round was against a third-degree black belt. And this is a dude that used to joke, he'd go, you see this gringo? I'm going to crush him. And then he'd go do it. Like he wouldn't. I like the guy. I mean, but he likes mushing gringos. That's just what he does. So my first 4 rounds were like that. And I remember crawling on my hands and knees over to the bathroom because it was in a house, right? And so like the mat ended and there was a bathroom right there. I remember being on my hands and knees and thinking, like, what have I done? Right? Like my return plane ticket isn't for 6.5 months. Like, I can't let this happen to me for 6.5 months. And so, I kept peeling myself off the floor and just going back. And Gordo's like, yeah, don't worry about it. 10 weeks, you get your cardio. And I was like, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years. I'm never beating these guys. They're going to smash me. And so I started doing the no-gi classes. And, that was like, well, I'll do that because I'm a no-gi guy. Mind you, I've been doing gi longer than no-gi, but I needed something to hold on to so that I could rationalize just getting destroyed over and over.
Right.
And so I went to no-gi classes, but it was like no-gi in Brazil was like MMA fighters and black belts that had already won world championships that decided that they just wanted to do no-gi.
Yeah,
and
they're
so
bored.
a typical no-gi class was 10 to 12 people. The only non-black belts were the Muay Thai instructor and myself, and maybe a gringo or two, depending if they were at the house at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember one day there were 10 black belts. Me and the Muay Thai instructor, the only not black belts. 5 of those black belts are world champions. So you had like Penapano, Penashumbo, Shumbiku, Rafael dos Anjos. I trained with him almost like daily. My first trip, and
how'd that work out for you? With those guys,
I did better.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in good shape. I didn't win by any means whatsoever, but it was more competitive. They didn't have the grips that they had, and I had been out of practice, so the gi work pretty well. I did a little bit of gi work when I was at home, but nothing like the time when I was with Alliance. And so I started to get my cardio or get my timing involved, kind of know the games that people were going to play. And then one time I'm sitting there, Vitor Belfort's there, Rafael dos Anjos is there, and in walks Neto, Antonio Braga Neto. And I'm like, I'm going to get this dude. I'm going to rip his feet off.
Yeah.
OFF. I'm a leg lock guy. This is the only time you're ever going to hear me say that because it's ridiculous. I'm not a leg lock guy. But then that's what I was holding on to. That's what I was holding on. I'm going to get this guy. Fast forward to my match with Neto. And I don't know how I got there, but I distinctly remember kind of snapping to reality, and he's on my back and he's wearing MMA gloves and he's just lightly like tapping me in the side of the head. And I've got my arms up, like, behind my head, like beach laying down, and he's punching me. And I remember thinking very distinctly, like, don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up. Right. And Gordo is standing right in front of me. He's like, Jeremy, defend. And I'm like, and I turn in and he like auto triangles me. I mean, he beat me worse in no-gi than he ever did in the gi. There was just, we were playing for imaginary points in our pajamas, and I couldn't keep up with him. And to think that we were going to take off the pajamas and put on MMA gloves and I was going to be able to, it wasn't even close. And he was 21, and I was 27.
Yeah.
And so it was that day that I realized I was never going to be as good as Neto was that day. Like, he started when he was very young, 4 or 5, something like that. And he was a blue belt purple belt, brown belt, black belt, consecutive year world champion. I mean, he was an animal. He's at the top of his game. And I believe that there's something that you learn as a child that you can't pick up as an adult. Exactly. And so there's this part of your brain called the language acquisition device. And it's a part of your brain that is receptive to learning language from birth until about 12. And after 12, that window of like being a sponge for language disappears. And so when you have people from other countries and they're speaking to you, even if they've been in America a long time and they're fluent, like they can tell jokes, they can dream in the language, you can still hear a little bit of accent, right? A lot of times. And so that lets you know that they're not from here. Well, I believe that physical movement's the same way. Like you have your gymnastics people, they're retiring at 21. They're not starting gymnastics at 21.
Right.
And so if I take an adult and I'm like, hey, do a cartwheel, there's almost nothing I can tell an adult that will convince them that they can do a cartwheel. But if I go into the kids class and I'm like 6-year-old, like put your hand on the floor, do a front flip, fly, like just, I can blatantly lie to a kid and they're like, okay, they just try it. And, kids are amazing with their balance and their movement and things like that. And when you cultivate that, it's a perception of your body. Yeah. And now, I've kind of flushed out my belief on that, why Neto is so good. I mean, he started when he was young and he just didn't stop. And he has body perception and awareness that is above and beyond his technical understanding. People are technical all the time. Like, you can be technically sound, you can be a fantastic grappler, and you can reach a proficiency with that is fluency, just like learning a new language. But to try and compare it to someone that has only, has learned that language from birth, I mean, like, I'm never going to have that. I can't have that. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't do jiu-jitsu, but it was a really hard day after that day with Neto. I went down to the beach, and I hate the beach, and I don't know how to say, I was crying, man. I was like, I thought I was going to be an ADCC world champion. I raised all this money. I moved to Brazil, and I was like, well, that shit ain't going to happen. And so my whole life had changed. You got to remember, I moved to Brazil to be a world champion.
You was crushed.
I was crushed, man. I was crushed that I watched my dream die in front of me.
Did Gordo help you transition that pain and agony to something different, or is that something you did within?
You have to do it within. I mean, Gordo is one of the best coaches in the world that I've ever met, and you have to make a distinction between teacher and coach. And he's good at transfer of knowledge, but his ability to talk about technique selection and game planning and being there as a mentor, man, some of the best in the world. But this wasn't a sports psychology thing. And my belief is that, I have an accumulation of injuries from doing traditional martial arts and boxing, kickboxing, and things like that have put a wear and tear on my body that's not intelligent. Right. And I'm just fighting the clock. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to beat those guys that started when they were 6. They're 25 now. They've been competing the whole time. They blow up their arm today. Tomorrow, they're like, oh, it feels good. Like mine, I can't do that. And so realizing that that's not something you can coach me mentally through, right? I have to reevaluate my place in the jiu-jitsu community. And that was the day that it happened for me.
That's when you did it.
That's when I did it. So I realized that I'm a loser, and I had to be okay with that. Losing is not something you choose to do. I don't care what anyone says, man. No one wants to lose, but I acknowledge that it's part of the learning cycle, right? Failure is part of the learning cycle. And while that is something that's thrust upon you, like somebody comes and submits me, I didn't give them that. I might have made a mistake, but I certainly didn't want it to happen. It's just the reality. It's the knowledge of the result. So I can wrap my mind about being a loser. I just can't wrap my mind around being a quitter. And quitting is a choice, right? Like, oh, I don't like how it feels to lose, so I'm going to quit. Unacceptable.
I hate that.
I hate it too.
I can't stand it.
And so I have just accepted that I train jiu-jitsu because I like jiu-jitsu. I don't train jiu-jitsu for the medals. I don't believe that having medals makes you a good grappler. I believe that good grapplers will have medals. And so I equate it sometimes to my students as rock climbing, right? There are people that fall in love with the view at the top of the mountain. And if you get into rock climbing for the view, it's going to be super disappointing, because the view is just this tiny little bit of the experience after all of the work of climbing up the side of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
How long are you at the top of the mountain? How long do you enjoy the view? Take a picture, cool, show it off to some other people. But if you enjoy rock climbing, like that's something you enjoy, well, the view is just extra.
Yeah,
right?
climbing.
It is just the climbing, man. So for me, I love jiu-jitsu. My idea of a good day is coming and training jiu-jitsu. If we win some medals, that's great, but I'm not going to let the view at the top of the mountain define me.
How long was you in Brazil with Gordo before you got your black belt?
So I had been a purple belt for about 2 years. After the 10 weeks, it's funny, Gordo's like, 10 weeks, you get your timing down. There were a couple of experiences in there where I caught a couple black belts and some submissions, and I was starting to perform well. My timing caught up. My technique selection was good. I was training very hard. And after a particular hard training session, one of the head instructors at Gordo's Academy, Hummel, comes up and he says, hey, are you a purple belt? And I was like, yes. And he's like, are you sure? And Brett, I thought he was about to demote me. I thought they were going to take my purple belt and I thought they were going to give me a blue belt, right? And because I had been getting mushed by a lot of people, what I didn't realize is they were pairing me with the best people in the academy, and I don't want to say that they were trying to meat grind me, but I think as an instructor, you pair people for the benefit of the school, right? And so if I'm there and I'm a tough guy, I want to train hard, they're going to pair me with people that are going to take advantage of that for their training experience, but also for mine, right. It made me better. But I didn't realize that at the time, that I was getting mushed by black belt world champions and I was a purple belt, you know what I mean? Right. So, and then he goes, so you're not a brown belt? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, Thiago over here, that purple belt that I rolled with on first day, he's like, he found on this website that you're a brown belt in America. I was like, no, I'm a brown belt in combat jiu-jitsu. That's what Charles does, is combat jiu-jitsu. And he was like, so you're not a brown belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I said, no. I got my purple belt from Alliance. I'm a brown belt in combat jiu-jitsu, different martial art. Yeah, they have a different belt system. Yeah. And so he was like, okay. And I was like, oh my God, they're gonna kill me. I don't know what was going through my mind, dehydration training or whatever. And then
no, I would have been scared.
Yeah. So a couple days later, we had a barbecue, and twice a year, Gordo would do these promotions at barbecues. And I had my girlfriend at the time, Giselle. She was also teaching me Portuguese. I had her come to the barbecue as well, and we're standing around, and I didn't speak like any Portuguese really. I probably knew 50 words maybe. Yeah. And so I'm just eating a churrascaria, like the meat and stuff, and they're giving out promotions, and then everyone starts clapping, and Giselle's like, oh my God, you got promoted. And I was like, to what? And she's like, and I thought they were going to promote me to purple belt, right? Right. That's what I thought, right? And they're like, to brown belt. And I was like, me? And she's like, yeah. And it was the best day of my life. Like if you had told me I was going to get my brown belt that day, there's no way. No way. No, I would not have believed it. And so I get my brown belt, and so I'd been there about 10 weeks. So that was in my first trip. And so then I spent the next 4 months as a brown belt there training. And I realized that if I wanted to be competitive and I wanted to do this for a living, that's where I needed to be. And America was great, but I needed to be there. And so I made the decision to come home, sell all my belongings, and move back forever. Well, I overstayed my visa in Brazil by 3.5 months. But they wouldn't let me go back because you can't be in the country for more than 180 days on a visitor visa, like on a tourist visa. And so I had to stay at home at least 6 months before I could go back. And so that gave me time to like sell my belongings and kind of do all this other stuff. And so during that time, I met my now wife. But it was like hey Meg, no strings attached, kind of like just let's have fun, go on some dates. And we really jived really well. We spent every day together for like 3 months or something like that. And as the relationship started to grow,
Now, just so everyone knows that's watching and listening, she had nothing to do with jiu-jitsu at this time.
nothing.
Okay.
Nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. As a matter of fact, she was doing roller derby. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
I'm
she
like,
did do roller
roller derby.
Yeah.
This is cool, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I came and watched her one time at Grady Cole.
It's pretty cool, man.
It's cool stuff.
I told her, I was like, hey, this isn't going to be a thing because I'm moving to Brazil. She's like, yeah, okay, no problem. And so at some point I was like, oh man, I like this girl a lot, right? And well, how about I go to Brazil and then you come visit me? She's like, okay, I'll come visit you. And
Did you think she would? When
yeah,
she said, okay.
yeah. I mean, we were getting together. I moved in with her. Like and it was a pretty safe move in because she knew I was moving to Brazil. So even if it was crummy, like you could put up with anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Brazil and I was very explicit. I'm like, I'm not coming back. And then it turned into, I'm not coming back until I have to get my black belt. And I planned for 2 more years. But it took me about 9.5 months. And she had come down to visit for a week with her friends. And I proposed to her. And I really liked her. Obviously, if I proposed to her, I could see myself spending the rest of my life with her, which I am. But I needed to know if she was serious too.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to change my life? Like, are you as serious as I'm serious? That's kind of how that was. And she was like, yeah, I'm serious. And so that was at the height of right at the economic crisis thing. So she got let go from her job like a couple weeks later.
Oh, man.
And I was like, well, why don't you come to Brazil with me? She's like, I can't. Why? I'm like, I have my cats. And I'm like, yeah, like you got cats. Get somebody to watch your cats. Come to Brazil. And so she came to Brazil for 10 weeks and stayed with me there a little over 2 months. She had a great time. Again, didn't train jiu-jitsu. She would go hang out on the beach and I would go train. And so after 9.5 months, I got my black belt and then my wife was there for that.
So you get your brown belt, you came back for 6 months. 7 months. Okay. Now, when you came back to America, you came back here to this area, Fort Mill, Charlotte. What was it like? Well, first off, where did you train?
So Charles and I had I don't want to say falling out because Charles really isn't an argue guy. He just told me that it was better if I found somewhere else to train.
Was there a reason why?
I don't know. He had given a couple of reasons, and when I came home, we went out to lunch and talked about those reasons. And there was some reason that wasn't listed between us. He just wanted me to be somewhere else. And I don't know what that is.
Dude, but y'all went and sat down and talked.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That's
freaking awesome. I love it. It's great.
Like I said, he's a passionate person, and like he cared. I just think that at some point he realized that I was not the best thing for his school, and he wanted me to train somewhere else based on that. And I don't, as a purple belt, I was a dick for sure. Like I was not really a fun person to train with. My training experience now is much different than it was then to train with me. But Charles, I can't fathom, and I don't want to speculate on what his reasons were. But at the end of the day, it was because that was his learning environment, his school, and whatever I was bringing into that environment was changing it. And that is something that now that I own a school, I totally understand.
So wait a minute, back up. You was a jerk as a purple belt?
Yes.
Okay. So now I can understand why you were so understanding with other purple belts we do.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I feel so much better to hear somebody say that they was a jerk as a blue belt or a purple belt.
If you can't look back at yourself 10 years ago and go like, and give a little cringe every once in a while, then you haven't grown.
Yeah.
Right. You need to look at some of the things that you did as you were younger, and your experiences as wisdom will help you grow.
Yeah.
So regardless, when I came home, I wasn't training at Charles. I went back up to Lewis's, and Lewis and our relationship had been rocky at the time I was training with Charles. But upon coming back from Brazil, our dynamic really changed. And I don't want to say that we were peers, because we definitely weren't. But it was almost like a parents and father-son relationship where you have a lot of turmoil initially, but when the child moves out onto their own and is self-sufficient and then they come back, the relationship's different. Like
Right.
Lewis didn't have any hold over me, and he couldn't be like, well, when I trained in Brazil, blah, blah, because I trained in Brazil.
Yeah.
And so our relationship was really cool when I came home. He allowed me to train there anytime I wanted to. And one of these articles on the wall over here at the Charlotte Observer wrote, between my trips to Brazil, I'm practicing the move with Lewis, which is pretty rad. And so I got to train there a little bit. I trained at Steve Hall's. I trained up at Joe Hurst when he was in that warehouse.
Yep.
Like huge mat space, but
Yes.
like the bathroom,
Ginormous.
bathroom was down a hall in the dark.
And it was like this big.
Yeah. And that was really one of my first experiences with Joe. And he really opened up his school to me. I'd come in and there
That was
were
what, 2000, 2010, 2011?
10.
That's
So
crazy. That was your first experience with him, considering how
no,
long.
it wasn't 10. It was 9. Yeah, 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, I mean, I had met him, but I had never been in his school.
Right.
You know, and so when I would come in, sometimes he'd go like, hey, here's $20. He'd throw me a couple dollars and be like, why don't you teach this? He did that twice to me. Right. Yeah. And I don't think he was doing it as a way to like, well, I don't want to teach my class, you go teach. But he was inventing a way to give me some money and help me out. It was pretty cool. So when there was that time when you got your black belt,
Yes.
right? And I saw Joe walking up the steps. For some reason, he thought I was mad at him or something like that, or I was talking junk about him. And so I just went up to him like, hey, Joe, I don't know what you heard, but like, I have no problem with you. Like he's only been super awesome to me.
Right.
And so he was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, right on. Like if you ever, and I've told you this too, if you ever hear anything that you think I'm saying or that I think, first of all, it's probably crap because I don't go talking about other people in a private venue in a negative way. I won't even talk bad about our current bad hairdo guy. You know, I mean, that's just not my style.
We love your hair.
Yeah, that's just not my style. So, so I trained with Joe, or at Joe's school. Joe rolled me a couple times, but a lot of the guys that are now black belts were purple belts at that time.
Yeah.
And then I trained at Steve Hall's a good bit. I would say I trained at Steve's once a week, once every other week.
What's it like rolling with Steve Hall?
Have you ever watched those Aboriginal hunting videos? So what they do is they get a spear, right? And they're like, you see that zebra? I'm going to kill that zebra. And they don't shoot it with arrows. They just start running, right? And like the zebra's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then it'll run away. But then the zebra gets tired, right? And it'll stop. And then here comes Steve Hall running up. And then the zebra gets, oh my God, and run away again. And then here comes Steve Hall until the zebra is so exhausted that it falls over. And then the little Aboriginal dude walks up and just places the spear inside of the zebra. Yeah. Yeah, that's Steve Hall.
That was like,
yeah. Like you can tell, like, I mean, he fantastic. You can tell how someone rolls based on somewhat of their lineage, but also what their goals are. And so the Hoist Gracie Network is very self-defense oriented. And that doesn't mean that they have more or less skills. It means that the way in which they view what's happening is different. Yes. And so he values protection, which of course I value protection, but in an IBJJF event where your match is 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes long,
yes,
you gauge your gas tank differently. Right. Well, if you're not grappling on a timer, then like it changes your move selection. Right. Like these
changes the dynamic of everything.
Totally. Right. Like your kick and go, Sao Paulo pass, Marcelo pass, whatever it is. That's a fast dynamic movement. Try doing it in minute 18, you know, right? Like, it's just tough to do explosive movements 18 minutes in. And so Steve is a technician. He's a good teacher, a good coach, another passionate person. His body is also betraying him, but he doesn't make any excuses. You know, he gets out there and rolls, and he is very good at his strategy. He plays his strategy well. Fantastic person to train with.
Let me ask you a question, and we're getting a little bit off the subject of your history and stuff. Because man, you got a great history. You got a big history too. We're running out of time. Let me ask you this: who is the best American black belt that you've rolled with?
Best American black belt that I've rolled with.
Wait a minute. You're not allowed to say me because this is my podcast. So you have to take that me off of the list. I know I'm probably number one, but go ahead. Outside of myself, who would be number one?
American black belt. I don't know. I've rolled with
Dennis Ash.
Dennis is good. Yeah.
Like
here's the issue. So, what do you consider good? You mean that mushed me the most?
No. I'm talking. No. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I'm not talking about win and losing. I don't even look at that anymore.
Right.
I'm talking about you rolled with him and you was like, man, this is phenomenal. This is awesome. This is great.
I don't know, man. A lot of it goes really into stylistic matchups. And
you're a tough style to roll with.
Yeah, I have a really weird style. Like I'm larger than I appear on my videos a lot of times.
Yes.
Sometimes people come and they're like, "Oh my god," and I acknowledge that I'm a gorilla too.
And you roll larger than what you actually are.
Yeah, I use my length well, but I don't. It's funny because I use my length well, but I don't typically put a lot of weight into people. So I transition a lot too.
Yeah.
So when you start saying people like Dennis Ash, well, Dennis Ash, I think he fought at 145.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to compare his stylistic matchup against mine, style, not even size, it's a bad matchup for him. Right. If I play half guard where I'm very good at people trying to mush me, well, he plays a very aggressive passing, grinding game. And even if I screw up, I'm 210 pounds. I pick him up and put him back between my legs.
Yes.
And that's not an option he has when he screws up. So it's really difficult. I don't have a lot of peers in this area, but when I go to LA, I love training at Chingia's gym. Ryder from Alaska, one of my favorite training partners. I really like training with Jeff Nolasco. He just got his black belt. Dennis is a lot of fun, but all these people are like 6 inches shorter than me. I mean, like, I'm like, it's tough. Where's my peer group?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't have a big peer group here.
Did you roll with I think it was for your birthday. They bought you a private with the crazy guy, the Henzo black belt, or the Half Gracie black belt. What's his name? The guy that cusses all the time on his.
Kurt Osiander.
Did you roll with Kurt?
No,
you didn't get to roll with Kurt.
I didn't get to roll. I would love to roll with Kurt, not because like I want to get him, right? Not like that, but
right.
I love the style of jiu-jitsu that he has, and you know, Gordo and Half are extremely close, and so I think the lineages and the grappling styles will be similar, and I think that you know, I really respect Kurt and what he does and how he goes about it. So I think that grappling with him would be super fun.
Real quick, tell us about this. You're one of the senior black belts in the area, and you know, as far as ranking.
Sure.
What's your opinion on this thing with the IBJJF and now that you have to be a 3rd degree black belt in order to promote a black belt? And does the IBJJF, you said something interesting at the very beginning when I said IBJJF. You said that they govern and you said they put on tournaments. In your mind, do they govern the sport of jiu-jitsu, or do they govern the art itself of jiu-jitsu? Because to me, it's two different things. But what's your opinion on that? Because when you get into that 3rd degree promoting black belts, if you acknowledge that they govern the art, it gets a little tricky there.
I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is unique in the fact that it's both a sport and a martial art.
Yeah.
And I think that it's emerging more as a sport. And I think that it's good because it reaches a wider audience. If you think about the earlier UFCs, if you turned to, one of the soccer moms, hey, I'm going to take my son over to train MMA, it was equated to human cockfighting. I mean, that was a label given to it.
Yes.
And it was very difficult for the spread or development of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because of the stigma that was attached to that. And so making it a sport makes it more palatable for people that otherwise might not have engaged the material. So I love it in that aspect. But when you start going too far down that pathway, you lose a lot of the ideals and characteristics associated with martial arts. And a lot of the people that are black belts and that are teaching right now, they had their start in traditional martial arts. And so they want the respect and the hierarchy and things there. I think that personal development, intellectually and emotionally, is something that's focused on more in martial art than in sport. And so it's this weird collection of sport and martial art. I think that IBJJF does a great job of managing the business of martial arts. I think that it does the best it can with managing the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that while they have some hang-ups in that, it's a work in progress. I see them making good changes. You know, they're starting to have the BJJ Pro, you know, like pay out people, and I like that. I like that they're certifying all of their refs. That's super cool. I like that they have uniforms and they have hand signals and they have clear commands, although I don't believe they should be in Portuguese. I think they should be in English, especially when you're talking to two people in America that don't speak Portuguese, combate and paro, you know, like I understand those words, but when you have a white belt or a blue belt that's new to the sport, like they might, like you say combate, and how many times have you seen a referee go combate, and then the two white belts, they kind of like look at the
Just
referee,
sort of look
like,
at the referee, look at each other.
oh yeah, what am I supposed to do? So those are little things though, you know. Now, when you start talking about managing the art, how do you manage something that's still evolving? You know, I mean, like, it's difficult. I don't think that I need the IBJJF designating the values that my school has, but I don't think they try. I think that they try to manage the business side, and I think they try to manage the sport, and that they hope to keep good, valuable instructors in place. I also think that they're trying to keep control in the hands of the people that have it right now. And I don't know a whole lot of other American black belts that are third degrees, right? Like, so I'm one of the first in the area, you know, Joe is the fourth, right? Or fifth, fourth.
Yeah.
He should be fourth. And then I'm a second degree, and like, I don't know anyone else that's a second degree in the area. I mean, you got
what is Steve Hall? I know their ranking system's a little different, but
their ranking system's a lot different. They don't necessarily do it by time in. All of his belts have been awarded by Wes Gracie, and so they get like a solid black belt, and then they get don't quote me on this because this is not my lineage, but this is the way that I'm recalling it right at this moment. They get like a solid black belt, and then they get a white bar, then they'll get a red bar, and then, you know, then they move into professor and up. They're using blue bars now instead of the red bar. And so I believe he's a third degree black belt under Hoist, but to compare a third degree black belt time wise and experience wise under Hoist to a third degree where our promotions are coming from the IBJJF, you know, I mean, like,
yeah. How do you parallel that?
You don't, I guess. A lot of people want to, like,
yeah,
but you shouldn't.
So in the Charlotte area, the only third degree, fourth degree, or third degree and above would be Joe and Mushu, right?
And Steve.
But I'm talking about IBJJF.
What is Lucas?
He's from the planet Krypton, so I mean.
No, I mean, you got to remember, like, he put his school in a really smart place.
Right.
An Arboretum is kind of away from everything else that was going on. It's not super easily accessible, but it's got a lot of opportunity for growth. And so people have a tendency to forget about him, but don't forget about him. Dude's the animal. You know what I mean?
I just said he's from the planet Krypton.
That's true.
Isn't that where Superman's from?
Yeah, it's where he's from, bro.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas. And I hate to do this, but a lot of times whenever I know I'm talking jiu-jitsu and I'm talking to Charlotte area, a lot of times I exclude Lucas, and I shouldn't do that, but it's almost like Lucas is, in a lot of people's mind, is a separate entity of itself.
Do you know how beautiful the thing that is?
Oh, that's an awesome thing.
I wish
it's a phenomenal thing. I wish I was
off on my own and people would just forget about me too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not, and please, it's not forgetting, because I'm one of his biggest fans. I think the guy is freaking phenomenal. It's just one, he's not from the area. He's not from here, and he's not been here that long, and he's just on such a as an athlete.
3 years.
Yeah, as an athlete, he's just on a totally different level. So basically, in your thought process, the IBJJF is doing a good job. They're trying to do the right thing, but like I said, they haven't been around that long. I mean, when you talk about a corporate business entity like that, I mean, 20 years is not.
Oh, okay.
That's not a.
Okay, so you're considering 20. Okay, yeah.
That's not a long time. I mean, the sport of jiu-jitsu here in America hasn't been here that long.
For sure.
I mean, when you compare it to other sports or other martial arts.
Yeah.
I mean, look how long judo's been here in America, and in North Carolina. I mean, good grief, now you're talking something even, and in Charlotte, you're talking about you're talking about just something so young. But so last thing I do want to get your opinion on promotions, criteria, time, belts.
Right on.
I mean, what's your take on all that? Because it seems like.
What's your process, and then what's your take?
Yeah, what's your process?
So
We'll start from the beginning.
well, let's start from the beginning.
Who was your first black belt?
From scratch? I don't have one.
Well, who did you award your black? Piper was your first black belt, right?
Yes.
What was the criteria to giving him his black belt? Or was it just because he won?
No. He was at the level. There comes a point where you stop looking at your student as your pupil and look at them as your peer. And I had started looking at Piper as a peer.
Do you think that's the time you sort of say to yourself, okay, maybe this guy is ready, maybe he's close?
I don't know. I think that just like the way that I look back 10 years ago at my technique, I look back at the way that I decided to promote people different too. It's different for every professor, every instructor has different criteria, and it's a collection of things, and it's a collection of things here as well. Hey, Jeremy, will you open that for me, please?
Yes, sir.
So it's a different collection of criteria for everyone. Well, first thing that I wanted to do with Great Grappling was make sure that I use sound teaching principles, but apply the content of jiu-jitsu. And so what I would say is I call that best practice. And that's a term in physical education, best practice, that's supported by literature. Well, I also understand that best practice is not being used in general. So we see a lot in martial arts, this holding on to previous ways that things have been done, tradition. And tradition can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing too when you become accustomed to doing something one way, and then the landscape changes and you still try to do it that way, you can get yourself into trouble. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to have a quantitative and qualitative way to assess my students. So for me, the blue belt is a technical belt. And we use that, or we at least used it as a compliment when I was coming up. Like, oh man, you're really technical. And technical should be like the baseline. Everyone should be technical. But in learning, I would consider that rote memorization. Like I say, hey, show me a closed guard armbar, and you regurgitate to me the move that I showed you. Does that really show me how you understand that movement?
No.
And that's what I believe. But we can't talk about strategy until after you know how the pieces move. And so for the blue belt at my school, it's the only belt that we test for, right? So you test for your blue belt. It's got like 48 techniques. It's a primary and secondary from the 10 basic positions, attacks and defenses and transitions. So like, show me a submission from close guard. Show me another submission from close guard. Show me a close guard pass. Show me another close guard pass. I'm not asking you to show me a specific one. I'm asking you to show me one that you value. And I can grade that based on being an instructor and probably having taught that to you. But as much time as I have in now, I can tell when something is practice or if it's legitimate, basically. Especially for the basics. So that's the blue belt level. We test for that. Once you get your blue belt, there's no more tests. And I believe that at the purple belt level, that's not about technique replication. That's about technique application. I need to see you apply those techniques in conjunction with each other, how they flow together. There shouldn't be any holes in your game. You should be good on top. You should be good on bottom. Doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes or that you don't get caught, but you should never be in a place where you go, what do I do here? Like you should have a game plan, a primary and a secondary, and be able to implement them. So after you get to that level, and that's something that I can only see through interacting with you, right? Like there's no test for that. Like I have to see it and I feel it, like the movement. Then after that, there are a couple of things that go on. I have some personal philosophies, but in general, there's a collection of things that weight towards somebody getting promoted. The first one is a key to competition. Okay, so let's take Andy King as an example. He got his purple belt extremely quickly from me, but he was a very, very successful wrestler. His wrestling rate 116-1 as a wrestler, right? 3-time state champion.
In 2 different states.
In 2 different states. Amazing grappler. Open to learning technique. And so he gained some skill very quickly. Did I promote him to purple belt because he exhibited all of the things that I would want a purple belt to do? No. But as an instructor, if I didn't promote him, it would have hurt him. And here's why. So if I say, hey, man, you can't put your hand on the floor over here, otherwise someone is going to triangle you. We'll use that as an example, right? At the blue belt level, enough to make him pay the consequence for doing that.
Right.
And so he may become accustomed to doing that wrong thing over and over again.
Because he doesn't pay the price.
Right. And then winning.
Yeah.
So not only does the person not make him pay the price, but it gets emotionally reinforced by doing the wrong thing and still being successful. And then when you get your purple belt and your brown belt and your black belt, there's that unlearning process where you have to go, oh, yeah, I can't put my hand there. I have to do something else, you know? And so he had a very successful competition record at blue. He won the pans. And then he won he took 3rd at Masters Worlds at purple. And so, I mean, he was an avid competitor. He listened, but I needed him to have competition. I didn't want him to go out there and mash people. I needed to see how he dealt with adversity. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's how we find out your jiu-jitsu is. I don't want to see you go out there and have your game plan go exactly as it's supposed to be every time, because we don't find anything about you intellectually or emotionally. That's just you implementing this plan in your mind, right? But when there's some back and forth, there's adversity, and you have to change your game plan and your strategy on the fly, I learned things about you. So key to competition is one of them. Number 2, understanding of mechanics, movement, and jiu-jitsu. So what is your depth of knowledge? Like, are you one of the people like, yeah, you're functional, you can do it, but like, how well do you know all of the things in and out of that? For myself, I cast an extremely wide net. And I think that aids me in being an instructor. If you come to me and you say, Jeremy, I want you to show me some spider guard. Man, I'm not really a spider guard player, but I can show you spider guard. Exactly. You want me to show you how to play a guillotine sequence, right? Like, not just this is a guillotine, but like, I'm going to lasso the head here. When they roll here, I'm going to step over. When they start to come out here, I want you to chin strap. I want you belly down. Like, I can show you a whole attacking sequence on guillotines. And I hate guillotines, right? Like doing them. Right. And so that knowledge, even though I don't use it a lot of times, I use it as a teacher, but as an individual black belt objectively, that knowledge is an important thing to have, not necessarily for my ability to be able to teach it, but just for my ability to defend it. You know, like if I know what I have problems with when other people try to do those things to me, I give them the problems that I had, if that makes sense. So technical knowledge, time in the art, a lot, and art/sport. Some people, it's a huge controversial thing. Oh, you mercy black belted, blah, blah, blah. You mercy purple belted, blah, blah, blah. That's crap, right? Like, you're telling me, we all acknowledge this. Are you the best black belt in the world?
No.
No, I'm not the best black belt in the world. I'm not even close. And so what makes you think that you deserve your belt as much as Leo Vera does?
Because I put time into it.
Right. You've been dedicated, and you have a level of proficiency, but you're not going to be Leo Vera. Right. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly.
And so, well, where do we draw the line? where is the line on it? Well, the answer is that it is each individual person, right? If somebody, that's the best version of them that they are going to be, well, then why would you not promote them? You get what I'm saying? Like, they're training as hard as they can. They're attentive. They're a student. They don't quit because they're getting beat up. You know, I mean, I'm not saying you just throw belts on people. There has to be technical knowledge, but part of the weighting process, the WEIGHT, is also how long they've been in that role, because wisdom is a real thing. You know, like Matt, how many people do you have like Matt IQ, right? Like, you're like, well, they're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but they've been grappling for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, well, some of that goes into account too. And you see that all the time. People getting, you know, like Shale Sonnen gets it. Is he a brown belt or black belt now?
I think he's a brown belt.
All right. So he gets his brown belt and everyone's like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, no one's like, oh my God, Shale Sonnen got a brown belt. I can't believe that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay. You know, and then he'll be a brown belt for a while, and then he'll be a black belt at some point. And I think part of the problem that led to that is that all of the first black belts in America were thrillers and killers. Not crappy black belts didn't come from Brazil to America. Only the cream of the crop came, right? So the only people that you interacted with that were black belts were thrillers and killers, right? And so then you think all black belts are thrillers and killers, and that's just not the case,
right?
And so when I go to Brazil, or when I went to Brazil, there was a day where 26 black belts showed up just randomly to class. There were 9 not black belts, 26 black belts. And, and here's the reality. At black belt, there are some black belts I can smash and do whatever I want to. And then there are some black belts that can smash me and do whatever they want to me. Like, I'm just one of the fish in the pond. I'm not big, I'm not small, we're all just fish. And so when you realize that the biggest range gap, skill gap is at black belt, then you're like, these people that judge what other people's belts, who should have and who shouldn't have, they just need to get out of here with that, right? The only person that you should be concerned with when it comes to belts are 2 people: your students or your instructor, right? Like, Gordo says I'm a black belt. Guys, I'm a black belt. You know why? Because Gordo said I am, and his is the only opinion I care about. And my students, when they want a belt, right, they can want all they want, right? Like, they can desire it as much as they want, but you're only that next belt when I give it to you, right? And if you don't value that, or you think that someone else has a better grading style for you, go be it.
You need to go.
Go where you're happy, man. Because if you're not having enjoyment and happiness in your training, then it's not sustainable. And what are you going to do 20 years from now? 20 years from now, I want to be rolling, right? Yeah. And if you're like, well, I got to go, it's work, got to put in work. Yeah, absolutely. You train hard because you like the climb. You like rock climbing, right? Don't train hard for the belt. Train hard because you like it.
So let me ask you this last question, then we're gonna break and get out of here, because I know you got privates to teach and you got things to do. Nick's got beer to drink. So if you have a young man back there behind the desk named Jeremy, and I've rolled with him, phenomenal grappler. He's got a great future ahead of him. He's a purple belt.
Yep.
When you give him his black belt, is he a Jeremy Arel black belt?
Absolutely.
Or is he a Gordo black belt?
He's a Jeremy Arel black belt.
Okay. By IBJJF standards, if Gordo would sign off on his black belt.
Only if I'm not a 3rd degree. He ain't getting his black belt in the next 2 years.
No, I'm just saying, this is hypothetical.
Okay, so now.
Or take someone that already is a black belt.
Okay. Derek Barker.
Who?
Derek Barker.
Yeah, Derek Barker. Okay. So is Derek in your mind a Jeremy Arel black belt or a Gordo black belt?
Okay. I, being the military man that I am, I defer to my instructor. And so my instructor, Gordo, views Piper, views Derek Barker, views Jake Bayman, right? All of them, he views them as my black belts.
Okay.
Now, if Gordo said, these are my black belts, I'd be like, okay. Right? Like, they're your black belts, man. Like, and that when I decided to join Gordo's team officially, I sat him down and I said, sir, I am a traditional martial artist at heart. Anything you want goes. All you got to do is tell me. If you say, I want the ceiling painted purple and you're going to use blue mats, yes, sir. You know, that's just, and part of the reason that I'm with Gordo is because I know he won't do that, but I trust in his leadership and his ideals. And like, he is such an easy person to follow that whatever he says goes. If he wants them to be his black belts, to be his, but I can tell you because the words have come out of his mouth that they're my black belts.
You know, I actually had a student, the other day, basically in more words than one, tell me that they hope we never left Checkmat affiliation because they wanted to be a Leo Vera black belt.
Sure.
And I said, you know, when they said it, I was absolutely 110% crushed.
Oh,
absolutely. No, I'm just being we're sitting here talking.
How long have they been your student?
From the very beginning.
Right. Hold on. What belt are they now?
I'm not going to say.
Okay. Because that would give it away.
That would give it away.
That would give it away. What you're going to find is some of these people that are making statements now, their views are going to change over time.
Yeah.
Right. And don't take some things that they're saying to heart because, you know, my daughter the other day was like, I hate you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm going to my room and I'm going to sleep. And right. And I'm like, oh, you tore my heart out. But I know that the next day she's going to be, Daddy, I love you mostest. And I'm like, oh, I love you too. So.
But you know what, though? Just hearing you say that, though, on your relationship with Gordo and how you feel about it, you know, that Gordo says they're your black belts, and in your mind, they're your black belts. But if Gordo says they're his black belts, then.
But it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
And to hear you say that absolutely just opened a new avenue of thinking in my mind, because when they said it the other day, and ever since they said it, I was literally sitting there thinking to myself, well, what the heck am I doing? What am I spending all this time with these people for? If in their minds, if they're really that narrow-minded that they think that their black belt or their brown belt or their purple belt or their blue belt is under Leo Vera, not under me.
Mm-hmm.
But then to hear you say that, you opened my mind up to a new way of thinking about it. So I thank you for that. That helped me a lot. Do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to say?
No, I'm good.
No, you're good.
You got me talking for 2 hours, it looks like, right?
Man, you did good.
You
did good. Listen, you're one of the best guests we've ever had.
Among the best.
You're among the best.
Yeah.
Well, you're the only one, but at the same time, I'm sure you'll probably go down in history, and I'm pretty sure people will be asking for us to have you back on here again.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Man, this has been awesome. And this is a great gym. Ladies and gentlemen, even though his gym's literally probably within a 10-mile radius of mine, if you get an opportunity to come down here and train at Great Grappling, he's a
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
phenomenal instructor. And I tell everybody that. I may not always agree with him, he may not always agree with me, but he's one of the best instructors that I've ever had or ever been around or ever been on the mats with. And your instructional videos, I do want to say something about this. I hate instructional videos. I hate doing instructional videos. Like Nick over there wants to take me all the time, and I'll be doing something in class, and I'm sitting there watching him tape the entire thing, and then at the very end, I'll go back and recap, and then I'll look at it and I'm like, okay, you can use that. All right, because I hate seeing myself on camera. I hate seeing instructional videos because a lot of times
you ready for this, bro?
The details.
I do that too.
Oh, really?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, we'll see. I learned that. But a lot of times with a lot of instructional videos, especially on YouTube, to me they're just so incomplete that the details that are needed are never given. I want to give you a compliment.
Thanks,
you and I hope I'm saying his name right. Henner Gracie.
Henner Gracie. Mm-hmm.
You're the only two instructional videos
Thanks,
that I watch on YouTube. I love the details. Henner's amazing because he can give a lot of the details that you give, but he goes amazingly fast.
Yeah.
Like, how does he go speak that fast and hit all those details like that? But you and him are two of the best online instructors that I feel that's out there. Again, viewers, get out here to Great Grappling, get on the open mats, come join. If you're in the Fort Mill area and you haven't joined my school or you haven't never done jiu-jitsu, please come by here and check Jeremy out, man. He's a phenomenal guy, phenomenal instructor.
So where can they find you?
We are at 2040 Carolina Place Drive, Fort Mill, South Carolina, 29708, directly across from Baxter Village, down behind Lowe's. You can check out my website at greatgrappling.com.
And he's a super nice guy. Super.
Is there links to your blog on your website?
The blog actually isn't its own standalone thing. I just wrote it on SureDog Forum. A couple people have ripped it. So if you type in Gerbil blog or Jeremy Arel blog, there are some people that have formatted it in a way that is much more blog-like, but it's kind of grown into its own entity.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Check it out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later. Thanks, Jeremy.
See you
Thank
guys.
you.